When was the exact moment when you knew your significant other was a psycho? We were having a very candid conversation about personal relationships, and she told me that she only keeps people around her that serve a purpose. I asked her to expand on this, and she told me that people are only as useful as what they can provide to her. Everyone else is entirely irrelevant. She also said that if she felt that someone was useless, that she would do everything in her power to make sure everyone else thinks they are useless too. I broke up with her shortly after that. Story 3. Woke up and she had a bad dream. She told me it was about her brother beating her when they were young. I put my arms around her to reassure her that everything was fine and she was safe. I saw stars and tasted blood as she started wailing on me in the dark. I reacted to get her to stop from hitting me by blocking in the dark. This made her fall out of bed. When I got to the light, she was hitting herself. She was pretty dramatic all night, and we got no sleep. The next few days, she wore sunglasses and more makeup than Michael Jackson, so that friends, family, and coworkers would ask about it. Yes, she had a black eye, a small spot visible only when her eye was closed, and you looked. However, she really wanted to be a victim in a dramatic relationship. Darren hit me in the eye, but it was only after I hit him first. That was a rough relationship, and I just took it when she'd start swinging after that. She had some sort of narrative that she wanted played out. She was manipulative and wanted sympathy. It was very difficult to say or act in a way that she couldn't take the worst way possible to feed that narrative. Me blocking that one time was a crime, while the constant punches or slaps from her were acceptable because I was a trained martial artist. Story 4. She flipped out about something pretty menial. I don't recall. It was that unimportant. But she flipped out. She had a lot of stuff in my place, was practically living with me. She threw all of her clothes out my bedroom window on the second story. Then threw her 2 double perk bong out the window that shattered in the street. R.I.P. Peacemaker, you ironically named bastard. She was trying to hit me, yelling insults at me. I was just aghast. My roommates were WTFing pretty hard and told me to get this woman out of their house. I called her mom. We were both 20 at this time, but yeah, I didn't know who else to call. Who came and calmed her down and took her home. Oh, I almost forgot. During this whole thing, she stomped out of the house and started walking down the street, crying and yelling. I live on campus and she found 2 Chad bros, and I don't know what she told them, but she brought them back and they were trying to white knight a situation they knew nothing about. WTF, bro? You just go around making girls cry? WTF is wrong with you? You need someone to knock some sense into you and actually try to fight me. They came halfway up the steps when my roommate, who had been watching the whole thing, went in and got a baseball bat. They decided to abandon the crazy ship at that point. God damn, that roommate had enough. He was like, nope, no one's white knighting here. I'm pulling a baseball bat out. But yeah, that's always a big fear of mine is, I do not know why, but a lot of men tend to white knight in situations. It's insane. You can have a situation where a couple goes outside in public, and if the girl starts to cry, even though maybe the situation could have gone like this, I found out you've been cheating on me, and then next thing you know, she's crying. Guys will see the girl crying and automatically assume the guy did something wrong. It's a very weird dynamic. Story 5. He told me he'd murdered someone. Said he stabbed someone in an alleyway and left him for dead, and that he saw in the news later on that the man had died. Was very sketchy on details, but claimed it involved some kind of initiation to some kind of weird underground society. Then showed me anime-style drawings he'd done of the man's face as he'd stabbed him. I never found out if he was telling the truth or lying about this, both of which would have meant he was unhinged and potentially dangerous. Oh, and he told me this the first day I met him, before we started dating. I dated him after he told me this, because I had really horribly, terribly bad judgment back in those days. And that is why you work on your self-esteem and basic common sense skills before you date anyone. Story 6. Told me she had a dream she walked in on me effing her sister, and she got a knife from the kitchen and stabbed us both to death. Okay, dreams are dreams. That crap happens. I can let that ride. But her attitude towards me while now fully awake, the entire waking day behind her as this was now dinner time, was accusatory and resentful. And she made me feel like she was demanding some kind of apology. That's a bit psycho in my opinion. Story 7. Okay, a little backstory here. My current significant other, now my fiance, as of last night, have known each other for 6 years. But our relationship has been a bit off and on. I'll call him John. While we were off, I started dating another dude who I'll call Ryan. I should have broke it off right after we got into a fight one time and he yelled, "I'm gonna end myself if you go." When I tried to leave, major red flag. Eventually I do end things with Ryan. It ended badly. A few days later, John comes over to my place. As we were going out for drinks, we always stayed friends when we were off, so we walked out, heading to the bar. 10 minutes later, my phone rings, and it's Ryan. He informs me that he is outside my house with some of my things and demands to see me now. I explained that I wasn't home. He should just leave the things and go. But he was having none of it. Rather than having him hang out on my street, we head back to my house to deal with him. He looked very shady, fist clenched, won't look me in the eye, heavy breathing, the whole lot. I managed to convince him to let me take him home. He didn't drive to his grand's house, but obviously John had to come with us. I can't just ditch him and leave him in my parents' house. And I wanted him around as I wasn't entirely sure I was safe around Ryan by myself. The unhappy three of us that we are get in the car. Ryan in front with me and John in the back seat. 20 very, very awkward, silent minutes later, we get to Ryan's house. I look at him and he's just staring at the ground. Fist still clenched, not moving. So I say, Ryan, we're here. And wait a minute. He does nothing. So I repeat myself. Still nothing. Just fist and heavy breathing. So I say, Ryan, you have to get out of the car now. And he suddenly looks up and gives me a death stare right in my eyes and says, I'll get out when I'm ready to get out. And I said, no, you will get out of my car right now. He then suddenly throws a full-blown fit, shouting, limbs flailing, screaming, no, I'll get out when I get out. At this point, John is in the backseat, had enough. I swear I blinked and he was suddenly from the back seat to standing beside Ryan's now open car door saying, Ryan, get the F out of her car now. I'd never seen him look so angry and defiant and just ready to do whatever had to be done. At this, Ryan then finally undoes his seatbelt, huffs out of the car shouting, I just need a effing minute for F's sake. All while having this look in his eye/face. It was just a total nothingness. It was easily the most terrifying way I've ever seen someone look at me. So finally, Ryan is out of the car and John jumps back in. As we drive away, I hear him shout, I'm going to end myself now, or something to that effect. Yeah, definitely a psycho. Story 8. My ex-lunatic and I would usually watch a movie every night before we went to sleep. Normally, we would take turns picking the movie we watched, which was a sweet deal every other day for me. My bathroom is on the other side of my apartment. It's a very long apartment versus the more common wide living arrangement. So, I go out of the shower and walk down the hall towards my bedroom. And when I got there, she was in the process of poking holes in every single condom that I have. I stared into her soul, stealing eyes, and said, what the F are you doing? And she looked at me and said, oh, good. I wanted you to catch me. Now you know how much I really love you. And gave me the psychotic smile that would send Satan skirting away. I was effing speechless. And she shattered my silence by telling me, oh, by the way, I lied about being the birth control too. I'm going to get that little Slim Steel in me one way or another. I may have already told my parents I am pregnant, she added. I now live on the other side of the country. Story 9. Had butted me in the face and broke my nose the day before I had an interview for a promotion at work. Also, sent me a picture of the blood stain on our mattress where I'd miscarried with the caption, Happy anniversary, gorgeous, on our 2-year anniversary a few weeks after we found out I was expecting again. The same day he locked me out of our flat at 5 a.m. to sleep with a woman 11 years older than us. I suppose realizing how much of an arsehole he was the best anniversary present I could have asked for. Story 10. My ex did a lot of really horrible things, and I just always had a feeling he was a little off. One thing sealed it for me though. He had been bugging this old man to let him buy his classic car for ages, and the man finally agreed. I go over the day he gets the car home, and he tells me the story. He went to pay the guy the night before, and the man cried. Told him to take good care of his baby. Asked him to promise not to change anything because he spent years working on it. It was his whole life, and so on. So boyfriend shows up the next day with a tow truck to get it, and the man's wife answers the door and says he died that morning. That the car was the only thing he was still hanging on for, and after selling it, he just gave up. The entire time he was just telling me the story, he was laughing hysterically. Thought it was the best thing ever that he broke the man's heart by taking his car and in some way contributed to his death. I know he did things much worse during our 2 years together, but that was the moment I knew he had no soul. Story 11. I was renovating her apartment for her when she bought it. It was pretty gross. Thick shag carpets, plywood kitchen, bad cedar panels on the wall, blue tub and pink toilet. We both lived at the place I was renting, with a plan for me to renovate her place and then both move in there when it was finished. I did everything. New bath, kitchen, lighting, floors, closets, everything. It was my first time doing a complete renovation on my own, so I was slow at it, but did a really good job. I'd work at my business all day, go to Home Depot, ask a million questions, then go to work on her place all night. One Friday, she asked me what I wanted to do tomorrow, and I said I needed to get the floor grouted so I could finish the bathroom. She freaked out on me, accused me of not wanting to spend time with her, and only wanting to work on her apartment. What? Yeah, I effing love this 20 hours a day work thing. I love increasing your property value, making your place nice for you. She also cheated on me while I was working on her place because she felt neglected, then refused to pay me after we broke up for the cost of the materials I bought to renovate her place. Eventually she paid me after she sold the place for 4 times what she had paid for it. Story 12. I wasn't allowed to have any friends, nor was I allowed to speak to his friends. I wasn't allowed to be near his friends, nor was I allowed to stay in my dorm room over the weekend. I wasn't allowed to live with him either, despite the fact he always showed up at my dorm at 8 a.m. every weekday morning. The only places I was allowed to be without him was class or my dorm. When he left me to go to class, the first text message he always sent me was, "I miss you." This was always within minutes of leaving. I know this isn't as crazy as some of the crazy seen in this thread, but this crap got old quick. Story 13. I figured it out about 3 years after we divorced. I was in the middle of a horrible decompensation episode, the fancy term they have for reoccurring breakdowns for folks with mental health issues, and had just been denied for state health care because I'd given him a big chunk of an inheritance I'd received after our divorce. I had no proof that it was something I'd promised him then, so I went through all the old chat logs. We'd supposedly stayed friends during the divorce and the immediate aftermath, and there were hundreds of pages. It was not the best thing I could have done given my already tattered emotional state. In the early pages, it only served to increase my self-loathing. As I read on, though, I found myself a lot more defensive than I'd been then. And suddenly I was reading a section where he told me that I had made him be cruel to me. He essentially said I had been such a useless lump that he had no choice but to resort to treating me like crap. I think the term was broken like a junkyard dog. It was so strange. All of a sudden, I noticed the fact that he'd mentioned advice from lawyers multiple times. I noticed a lot of things, and a lot of kind of scary things suddenly became apparent. I had always freely taken a lot of the blame in our whole situation, and while I thought I'd make a good list of the parts that were his issues, I still treated it like I would give him whatever he wanted, kind of as a restitution for having to put up with me for a decade. It was gut-wrenching, and I wish I'd been on my game when I realized he was a legitimate psychopath. It didn't pull me out of the place that I was, but it helped me tremendously in this climbing my way out phase. Story 14. There were many, but I was codependent and hung on for entirely too long. There was the way she decided that my playing with the chicken was tantamount to infidelity early on. Okay, whatever, no big deal, just won't mention it. Followed by deciding I'm not allowed to talk to anyone with a V. I was kind of floored when she complained about all those whores at the church I went to. That's actually real. She actually said that. God forbid she find out I talk to any of those whores. Clearly, they all want the D, and my intentions are irrelevant. Look, I'm flattered, but I'm not that hot. Not by a long shot. I'm quite certain the number of girls who want to bang me at the word hi is not close to none. Also, if someone ever utters the sentence, "I trust you," it's them I don't trust. Just leave. That's the epitome of nonsensical. The final straw really came when I flew out to visit family I'd never met for Thanksgiving, including a long-lost half-sister. Yeah, she was jealous of that. She actually accused me in her jealous tirade of banging my sister. What? The actual fudge a popsicle. Never got an apology for that either. Effing crazy psycho. Good riddance. And as I've heard, she learned nothing. She still conducts her relationships with a core of distrust and jealousy and isolation. I pity her because she'll never understand why they all fail until she understands it's her fault. Story 15. X started a huge argument with me when I brought up the fact that we were seeing each other. He began screaming at me and getting aggressive. I started to cry. He kept yelling at me to shut up, and then he grabbed me by the throat and screamed, "Shut the F up, or I'll slit your throat and throw your body in the snow." Clearly, this didn't make me any less upset, so I went into the bedroom to try and calm down. He burst through the door, knelt over me on the bed, grabbed me by the shoulders and screamed, "Shut the F up," over and over, mouth pressed against my ear while shaking me. He is now a state police officer. Story 16. Got mad because I didn't text her goodnight. Next day, she didn't reply to the "Oh, how's your day, honey" message I gave her. She turns up to my house after I finish at work. I lived at home at the time. She texts me to come outside. She's there in her car across the road, yells at me to get in, then says I didn't want to embarrass you because you're such a C of a boyfriend in front of your parents. But why didn't you text me goodnight last night? It's not acceptable. I was scared for my life, guys. Story 17. We had been dating for several months and had developed a regular standing date for the same night every week. In the afternoon of one of those days, she calls me to cancel. Naturally, I ask why. She informs me that it is the summer and it is too powerful of a night for her not to meet up with her coven to cast some spells. I thought she was just having fun at my expense, but nope. She invited me over to her friend's house where they prayed over bits and pieces of things I assume come from the Wiccan section of the Whole Foods. We are still friends with benefits 10 years later because my god. with a witch is deeply satisfying. Relationship with one, deeply scary. Jesus Christ, actually, I got my own story. Oh man, I'm gonna tell this real quick. It's pretty interesting. I remember I was in a relationship. And keep in mind, I've known her for 2 years. We're probably dating for a year and a half. It was pretty long, I would say. And I asked, I ended up touching a bracelet. She's like, stop touching that. I'm like, why? What's wrong? And she's like, it's a bracelet of wealth. I'm like, what's a bracelet of wealth? It's like, oh, it helps with wealth. I'm like, oh, like, I get it. It's just like, oh, it's a nice. She's like, no, it actually helps with wealth. And I just look at her. I'm just slightly getting more confused. I'm like, what are you on about? She then begins to tell me she's a witch and that her families are witches. And I remember I talked to her for 20 minutes straight. I just kept asking her, I'm like, are you playing with me? And she just looked at me so confused. She looked at me like I was a crazy one. But I just kept asking her, I'm like, are you actually a witch? I was so dumbfounded that I literally walked out of her dorm room, came back after an hour, and yeah, she never said she wasn't. And now we're broken up. We broke up probably like 2 months after that. Story 18. When I woke up crying from a nightmare about the guy who SA'd me when I was 4, it had been years since I had even thought about it. She asked what was wrong, and I choked out something like, bad dream, can't talk yet. Instead of comforting me, or hell, even rolling back over and going to sleep, she got angry that I wouldn't tell her why the F I was crying. She called me a B for crying and waking her up, and shoved me to the other side of the bed. I finally stopped sobbing and told her calmly I was hard as a child and just dreamt about it and remembered it all again. Her response? So why are you crying about it now? I don't want to hear about that sick crap. Get over yourself already. Story 19. I'm not sure. You tell me. Number 1. Lied that his sexual interest mirrored mine in order to get into a relationship with me. Then later admitted he was too emotionally scarred to perform any of the things I'm sexually interested in. Later admits that he was hoping once I got into his sexual interest, I wouldn't be interested in my own. Best way to ensure a spouse has an unhappy sex life. Ignore their sexual interest. Story 2. Didn't tell me he was HIV positive. Had unprotected sex with me several times anyways. Infected me and noticed when I was going through ARS. That's about the time he started freaking out and acting strange. And I would ask him what's wrong because it was clear something was wrong. Nothing's wrong. You're getting really effing paranoid. Then continued to make me look absolutely insane for thinking something is wrong. Tried to F me when I told him I was positive, like immediately after I told him. Made me hunt down all the people I did intercourse with, who were all clean, to tell them the news and ensure they were tested. All while fully knowing he was the reason behind it. Number 5. Doing mean things to me and then saying it never happened when I confronted him about it, no matter how much his friends would tell him otherwise. Number 6. Would clearly do something mean to someone else and act as if their anger is unjustified. Telling someone else his friend was once a prostitute to fund college, which was true, and that someone used it to publicly insult his friend. Number 7. Would refuse to ever have any form of argument. Would expect me to speak to him in the most formal manner when I'm absolutely angry at him, because shouting and cussing at him was disrespectful. Number 8. Lives in absolute filth and caused me to get several fungal infections from just staying at his place. Had a basket of laundry that has never changed, brown stains that looked like she wiped his crap over his bathroom. Broke glasses and not a single bit was swept up for a month. Had to clean it up. Things over his floors. Number 9. Thought it was insulting of me not to want to suck his pee and old child fluid covered chicken in the morning. Number 10. Couldn't bathe at all if I stayed over there. Bathroom was a wreck. Number 11. Told his friends his suspicions I was HIV positive long before I ever found out. Number 12. Kept reminding me that we did nothing that could have caused him to give me anything. Yeah, unprotected intercourse is nothing. Story 20. I worked with my ex while we were together. I was friends with another guy we both worked with. Let's call him Jay. My ex was incredibly jealous of all my friends, male and female, but particularly Jay. One night, I was at X's house when Jay texted me, asking if I wanted to go to a barbecue that night with a bunch of mutual friends. I replied thanks, but I already had plans with X. Mentioned it to X. He got really angry about it, claiming that I should have known that I was with X and how dare he text me. Managed to calm him down, I thought, and put on a movie. About half an hour later, I get a text from Jay asking what the F X's problem was. Turns out that, unbeknownst to me, X had texted, shooting his mouth off, telling him to stay away from me, etc. I was like, what the F is your problem? It ended in a massive argument that went on for a while. Eventually, I'd had enough, told him I was going to bed in the spare room. I'd been drinking so I couldn't drive myself home. About 10 minutes later, I hear X's gun safe opening in the next room, followed by the sound of his rifle being assembled. I lay there crapping myself, too scared to look. Next thing I know, he bursts into the room and is standing over me all crazy-eyed, holding a loaded rifle, demanded to know Jay's address so he can kill the MF. That was the moment I know he was an effing psycho. Story 21. when she faked being pregnant with triplets, wouldn't take a pregnancy test around me. So like a week after she apparently takes a test, she says she went and had an ultrasound and the doctor says it's triplets. I don't remember an ultrasound that quickly when my ex-wife and I had our first 2 kids, but alright. A week later, I'm visiting my parents for the weekend, and she decides to tell me she's made an appointment to abort on Monday. It's a long weekend, so now she's mad that I won't be back in time. Sunday rolls around, and I get a text that she was at the hospital for a miscarriage and needed blood, etc. I get home Monday night after this drama, and she wants to do intercourse. The day after, she apparently lost enough blood during a miscarriage that she needed a transfusion. She wants intercourse. Oh, she's fine, she says. Good to go. Couldn't understand why it seemed odd to me.